Hi, I'm Margaret, and welcome to Garden School. Today I wanted to talk just a little bit about editing in the garden or in the landscape. Now, what do I mean by editing when it comes to the landscape or a garden? Well, editing means removing some things or rearranging some things so that you can focus on something else. Perhaps it's the main structure, or perhaps it's the main color, something like that. But editing in the garden can be kind of interesting. Editing in the garden can also be kind of challenging, but you have to consider what is your purpose. Now, when we're talking about removing some things, it could be as simple as raking up leaves or trimming back something that's dead, cutting back something along a curb if you want to retain a particular line. There's a lot of things that could be considered editing when it comes to the garden, but you really do need to consider what is your purpose. Now, along this gravel pathway, there really are two borders where it's lined by larger rocks, but you would not know it because the creeping thyme and the woolly thyme has decided to grow out into the pathway. Now, this is a situation where you may want to really be able to focus on the width of the pathway and where the borders are. And I would say in that case, trim it back so that you can see the rockery on both sides. But if you also like, now in this situation, these are definitely treadable, so you can definitely walk on these without too much damage. You may want to really focus on how interesting it is to see the woolly thyme just find its little way into the gravel here. So this is your call. I mean, it's all your call. But this is one where maybe the editing would be on that viburnum on the other side to make the pathway appear unimpeded in this area. Here's an area where I edited. There was a holly bush that was growing up into this blue spruce, and it was really becoming, it was nice to have holly at some point, sometimes of the year, but it was really becoming cluttery and clogged up. So I removed it, and then I have to consider, what am I going to do with these dead branches that are underneath this blue spruce? How much do I want to lift it up? What do I want it to look like from the outside? Well, this is a project that still needs to be taking place sometime in the future. Here's another project that's also going to take place probably in late February, and that is getting these rhododendrons, which bloom so nicely in the spring, but getting them down to a level where it is not, the height is not imposing as you're walking to the front doorway. I'm going to get them down so that you can really see over them as you're walking up the porch. That will be a project, but with rhododendrons, this is one that can recover nicely. Along this pathway are some heathers that really truly did plant themselves here, probably from cuttings, from trimmings, as I was carrying out my trimmings from another heather plant. But you can see here, we're losing our pathway. The thyme is coming in from one side, the heather from another, and unless I make some major change here, I probably am going to lose my pathway. So I will have to consider what I'm going to do. Maybe I prune back this heather quite a bit so that it hugs closer to this big rock. That'll be good. But that's a decision I'll have to make too, is to edit so that I can maintain having a walkable path and safe pathway. Here's an area, a little berm full of succulents. There's some thyme that's creeped into here too, but also I have some interesting euphorbia that are really nice. They have just generated themselves here and multiplied themselves in here. But when it comes springtime, I'm going to want to probably focus more on the succulents in this area. And so I will need to be editing to remove some of the euphorbia. Now, in this little area where I have my rain barrel and a fire hydrant that is just a piece of yard art, I've decided to leave the euphorbia and the sedum that is just found its own place here and let it soften up the hard edges. This cotoneaster has been extremely vigorous, and by the end of the summer it was totally covering this beautiful big rock. Well, I want to focus on that large rock feature next to the initiation of my little stream, and so I had to do pretty hard prune to edit that cotoneaster. I still like it in there, but I'm going to have to watch it. And also it wants to take over the patio area, which isn't best. So that's one that needs pretty much constant edit. The area where you're growing fruit trees might be one that you really want to think about for your editing, because all of these little seedlings from seeds that dropped from Nigeria are going to be wanting to grow. And then while they'll look really cool, I want to have the area right around my fruit trees a little bit clearer for access to my tree, to do pruning, to manage the fruit onset and insect control too. So those will either need to get placed elsewhere or just removed. And as well as things that like to self-sow, for instance, the forget-me-nots, foxgloves, rose campion, all those givers that love to give, they also need some editing. Well, there's a couple things to think about here in the wintertime if you want to do a little bit of editing in your garden, or you can even just be thinking about this projects that you want to undertake in the springtime. Well, editing is good. Sometimes but you need to just decide on what your intention is there, what your desired result is, and then go ahead and do it. Well, there's always more to learn in the garden. Bye-bye.